Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. This week, we join you on an incredibly hot Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour, hot as balls in Temecula, hot as balls in New Jersey, but we're here. Ed, let's do this. You got something to add at the end of the show? Why don't you tell us about your previous interview?
Yeah, I interviewed Alex Proh, who's a guy that he made an app called Realcappers. So check out realcappers.com. You can download it for both iOS, Android. It's a mobile app. Um, we go into great detail about what the app does, but especially he's really focusing on the UFC because he knows that's where the biggest fan base is, where people are watching. And it's so you make picks on the app. You can write a detailed pick on the app. And he literally has the schedule for all the UFC cards. You can make your picks for all the fights or some of the fights. Write the reason why you think the fights are going to happen the way you think they're going to happen, and you can track your picks there. I know this all sounds commonplace, but the difference is he's trying to make it profitable for you without it costing you any money, because he wants to kind of turn it into something eventually you can help fund some fighters, like tip fighters with. So like say you make a pick on a fight and you're very good at it, but you're not as well known as the Greek toothy guy or whatever his name is. But let's say you're better than him, but nobody knows about you, and you're making him on this app. Somebody else signs up for the app. They can subscribe to you as a user, and for that you pay a fee. So if you want to follow someone, you can pay a fee, but if you want to see just overall picks, everything else is free. It doesn't cost anything to join. But if you want to follow somebody because you think they can help you make better picks and win some actual money, betting odds are included in everything. You pay the fee, and the person that you're subscribed to will also get a portion of that fee, while the other goes to the people that make the app, and they can send it to fighters and stuff too. So it's something that he's kind of trying to make a mobile version of fight picks, pretty much of the way YouTube started, like with the way they monetize people. If you have a certain number of subscribers, you get monetized, blah, blah. So that's pretty much the short version. So if you want to hear details about it, it's about a 28-minute long interview. Fast forward from the end back 28 minutes so you can hear the whole thing. I'm going to add it to this podcast just because I'd like more people to know about it. He didn't pay me or anything. I'm not I discovered it just Lydia Warren actually posted it. He sponsored that fighter. She's one of Jackson Wink's fighters, and I just kind of I found out about it through one of her social media posts. Downloaded the app. I've been playing with it for the last 3 UFC events, and I'm having fun with it. So check it out. And again, if it's successful, some folks could get some money out of it too. So
Nice. The big stuff this week is Jake Paul versus Mike Perry. Not going to take much time, but I want to make a quick couple comments about the last couple weekends. Boxing was fun. Masvidal Diaz, good fight. Pacing terrible. Made it hard to sit there for as long as forced to sit there. But the main event paid off. Good fight. Disagreed with the decision, but that's neither here nor there. Both guys left it in the ring as best they could in a boxing scenario. Last weekend, BKFC, here to stay. Love it. Not an empty seat in the house. Third fastest knockout in BKFC history in the main event. Just an overall, everything they're doing is fun.
Fernando won too.
Fernando picked up a nice decision win against a last late-minute replacement, going from a kind of pudgy Irish-like guy to a guy that looked like he was pumping iron nonstop for the last 40 years. So props to Fernando, stepped in there, swelled that dude up good, busted his eye up, got his eye a little tore up too. So he really got a true taste of BKFC. His first fight was a little bit of a weak back and forth, not a whole lot of not a whole lot of gore, I guess, not a whole lot of violence, and just kind of a lackadaisical decision loss for him. This time turned it on the heat. Fun fight to watch, hit the dude hard a couple times, but BKFC is just doing everything right now. And
they're going to do a press conference with Conor McGregor like this Thursday, I think, in Spain. So it's
to promote an event there and their vacant lightweight title. It was at a casino, so obviously there's some older folks, but there was, kids to grandparents that were loving the action. I mean, to the point where you had older women just,
Mm.
I mean, loving it. It's again not for the weak of heart, but if you're just looking for pure fighting
Mm-hmm.
in a sanctioned way, there's nothing quite like it. It's wild. Sitting close to it is extremely crazy, and
Mm-hmm.
all you can do is to keep thinking about the flashbacks to the old days because that's really the only thing we have that we can compare it to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because it is a wild scene. The fact that it's coming to large cities, large states, is incredible, and everything they're doing is great. I know they signed King Mo. King Mo's fighting co-main event
Yeah.
an event coming up. I'm not necessarily great on some of the old school guys getting in there because it makes me wonder why they don't have more money in their pockets and makes me kind of angry at some of the old
I
promotions.
hope that's not what it is, though. I hope it's more that they just feel the ring calling them back.
I hope
I
I
mean,
hope you're right. I hope you're right.
chances are, it's there's financial behind it, but I know there's a lot of guys that also, if that's all they've ever known, going to the gym and coaching guys or whatever, they get the itch to want to jump in there themselves, and I'm hoping it's more that. I mean, chances are I'm wrong, but you
And
know,
it's a last ditch effort but a competitive side. It is a last ditch effort to do something that has not been available to you as a combat athlete
hmm
for a lot of these guys. King
yeah,
Mo is the kind of guy that would have fought no holds barred, bare knuckle, Valley Tudo rules. It just wasn't available in 2007 when he started,
yeah.
when he was around. So um, I don't know, but everything they're doing is great. They have merchandise at the events. They have posters, as you can see in the back here. I mean, they just
And,
it's just a good fun atmosphere.
and King Mo, I know I wanted to be out there for that, but I couldn't change my time off because of the way that I have to request it and stuff at my day job. But um, one of the things about King Mo too, when I saw that announcement, I kind of did one of the. I kind of was like, I like. First, I'm a big King Mo fan. Watch him. I mean, he was a big Bellator staple. But I mean, as a martial artist, I think he's fantastic. I think his mind is actually probably his best weapon against anybody. Um, his history of the sport, his knowledge of just the art itself. So when I see that, like I know he can do so much more. It's probably easier on his body. I mean, just to throw hands or whatever. But when I see them kind of like pigeonholed into a rule set, that's because MMA is the closest you can get to a real fight, sanctioned and everything. But so I feel like some of his tools are not going to be there in BKFC. But again, I mean, he is a where his mind is at as a fighter. I think that's probably something that a lot of folks overlook. He's the last guy to he won the first Ryzen Grand Prix that they did for his weight class. He won it when they first did it, when they first came back. For held the first round. It was at 2015, I think. Um, but yeah, it's something that I don't know. I don't know if I'm as happy about that one as like when Mike Perry fights. You know what I
No,
mean?
but it's different. Perry's still in his
Mhm.
prime. Um,
Yeah.
the thing about King Mo is he's fighting Dave Mundell, who is a champion and no friggin' joke. So this isn't like, okay, I just want to get my feet wet. I want to go put my knuckles on somebody and just say I did it. He's
Hmm.
fighting a legitimate fighter. So all props to him. I mean, I like it, but I hope it's for the reasons. I hope it's for not just desperation reasons, which I don't have any reason to believe that. I know he's coaching and all that
Hmm.
stuff. So there's an income for him. This isn't somebody we just haven't heard of for 15 years
Yeah.
and they're coming out of the woodwork. So, but like I said, just all praises as far as combat fan goes to BKFC for everything they're doing right now. The weigh-ins were open to the public, which seems like not a complicated thing, but at a time where they do weigh in earlier to still put on a show to allow the fans that want to show up to be there for something, it's just it's nice. So
Yeah.
and the access to everybody and it's just really cool. So
It's old
all
school. It's reminiscent of what the.
it,
Yeah, and I hear
it's
you.
so everything about it's great. So let's move on. But obviously, what I mentioned where the big thing about this week,
Hmm.
BKFC, Mike Perry. their King of Violence, is moving on to get that mega payday, fight Jake
Mm-hmm.
Paul in a replacement for Iron Mike Tyson. Everything just coming out of my mouth just sounds crazy even saying this, that we got Mike Perry replacing Mike Tyson in 2024 in a boxing match against a YouTube star. I mean, the world is upside down, but I'm here for it, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
watch. I said it when it was rumored. I'm a little concerned for Mike Perry's brand here, um, as far as carrying it on with BKFC. We'll see if that carries any weight. Obviously, a win for him is huge. A win for him, I wonder if he goes back to BKFC or if he just becomes a boxing, name and can make. And, if he wins, he probably rematches him, which is more lucrative money. We start getting into the kind of the Ngannou situation. Like, do you go back to what's harder? You know what
Well,
I
it's
mean?
funny. It's funny you say that because like there's a lot of people. A lot of people are chiming in like about the PFL and all the promises they've made that are kind of empty. Jake Paul doing MMA was one of them. Francis Ngannou's the other. Doing MMA fights. That is. Um, and so Andreas Hale over at ESPN asked Jake Paul today because apparently Jake Paul wanted to do the MMA fight with Nate Diaz, and Nate Diaz is not keen to it. We know negotiating with Nate Diaz is probably something that's not easy to do. Especially we look at what's happening with the event that happened that you went to, or the one you just mentioned. Fan Mio he's suing Fan Mio because they haven't paid him the purse they promised him, and they released a statement. So, but I mean that's boxing. MMA is a little different. So Andreas Hale asked him, if you still want to do the MMA for the PFL because it's been well, it's already over a year since you said you were going to do it, and he said that he mentioned the Diaz thing, and he was like, I wouldn't mind doing 1-on-1 with Mike Perry. We do this boxing thing this weekend. He's focused on this weekend, and then he's like, if Mike Perry's willing, which I feel like Mike Perry would be more willing to do that in the PFL cage. I mean, and that's if PFL likes to book names, that's something they could put on one of their Challenger Series pay-per-view, whatever they're calling it, because they have 1,000 things going on now. But that's something that if they delivered on that, I think whoever their investors are that are probably wondering, dude, what's going on over there, might regain interest if they did it. I certainly would want to see it. I want to see this. I'm really excited for this weekend. Like, not for nothing, this boxing match. I feel like I'm really leaning Mike Perry. I know I've been aboard the Mike Perry train since he took the gloves off when bare knuckle, but I feel like he's actually more dangerous to I there's a lot of things that we don't know yet. Like, again, we talked about this when they first announced it. I feel like the ring is going to be super big. Jake Paul's going to try to make Mike Perry chase him and give him cardio issues. He's not going to stand in the pocket. He's going to try to counterpunch. You know what I mean? So that type of boxing, it's not bare knuckle. But if Mike Perry traps him in the corner like he did that boxer he got in Triad Combat, and Jake Paul can't go anywhere, he just needs to land one shot. I feel like Mike Perry must hit like a fucking hammer for him to stop Eddie Alvarez the way he did. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of variables. I know it's boxing, but I know there's a UFC event on that weekend too, but I'm more dialed in on this than I've ever been on for any freak show type of matchup that we've talked about in the past.
Well, it's because we're not. I mean, we're bordering on some kind of. I mean, this is as legit, really, as you can get right now. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he's for a YouTube guy who's boxed 10 fights against Mike Perry, he's not fighting a washed up guy. He's fighting somebody right now who's at the top of their fame, which
Mm-hmm.
is going to be the first one that Jake Paul has fought. Everybody else has been on the backside of their fame and name value. But
Mm-hmm.
I I don't know. I think the size is going to be an issue. Um, I think Jake Paul's going to kind of cover up. I think he's going to hope that there's a adrenaline dump from Mike Perry after the 2 rounds, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and then he's able to kind of wear him down over the next couple, and then maybe land something big or just kind of wear him out. I love the idea of an MMA match. I even love more the idea of a trilogy and being the first dudes to do a trilogy of BKFC, boxing, and MMA.
Mm.
I mean, like if there's money to be had there. See, the thing with Diaz is Diaz isn't going to piss the UFC off. The
Yeah.
UFC can fiddle with that guy for 2 decades. He's not going to walk away from the UFC and fight MMA anywhere else. He can box, he can kickbox, he can go do whatever else. But if he puts on MMA gloves and it's not in the octagon, the UFC will bury that guy. He won't be you know what I mean? Like we've seen it in
Mhm.
the past. The vengeance that they can bring if they tell you, look, I know you're not under contract, but don't fight there. You know, like if you want to fight MMA, this is the only place we'll pay you to fight. Come here. Jake Paul's not going to go. Jake Paul would go to the UFC, I think, but I don't know what his deal with PFL is. I don't think UFC is really serious about dropping a ton of money that he
Mhm.
would require to bring him there. It's not worth it for them. They gain nothing by it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. But I do
I
like.
don't see Jake Paul doing. I could see him doing MMA. I could see him, maybe another box. Of course, boxing, obviously, but I don't see him doing. I don't see him doing BKFC.
If he was
Like,
successful in boxing and then he was competitive to successful in MMA, I could see him doing it. If he goes into MMA and gets the hell beat out of him, then yeah, you wouldn't do it because you're just taking
yeah,
the gloves off. But I think I don't put anything past the guy. He's
that's true.
surprised me with some of his
Yeah,
stuff. Um, and if the money's right and he sees a way to promote, I mean, the dude's a great promoter. Like we're talking about him, and
yeah.
a couple years ago, like I didn't even know who the dude
No,
was,
I've
and
written
now he's
articles on him already. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, he's
uh,
literally behind UFC and I mean, is he number 2 promotion in the world? Is Jake Paul the number 1? I mean, maybe I'm being a little bit hyperbolic, but like I'm trying to think like,
no, he's
you
definitely
know?
the kids. All I mean, if you watch the Netflix Untold on him, I mean, him and his brothers, but him more specifically, he's just got a knack. He's got a knack for making folks interested in something. Um, and a part of it, and this is what I wrote about it for Front Proof Media, because they work with his promotion a lot. For folks that have been following the podcast, know I used to do the MMA for Front Proof Media, and speaking with my old boss, who's been on the podcast, Joseph Correa. Like after he was on the podcast, he had asked me to do that because we had mentioned Jake Paul, and he was like, "Why don't you, you should write about that?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." So I wrote the piece on him, and it was pretty much it could have been the script for the Untold story because it was just pretty much how he won me over because every time somebody called him out on his shit, so to speak, he answered. They fight Anderson Silva. He fights Anderson. He faces Anderson Silva. Box a boxer. He faces Tommy Fury and loses. And prior to that, he tried to do a big boxing event in New York, and that falling apart only proved his point about how bad boxing promotion. Because he's somebody that like his whole thing is trying to save boxing. Because he's got a modern way of doing it, and I mean it's hard to argue with the guy. So I hate to say kid because I know Dana White calls everyone a kid, but I can call him a kid because I'm definitely older than Jake Paul. But um, I'm just I'm impressed. Well, I agree with you 100%. He's a great promoter, and the most valuable promotions they definitely like the Mike Tyson thing fizzled. What better way to? I mean, I actually when the Mike Tyson thing fizzled, I was kind of like, you know what? That's fate stepping in and making us not see something potentially bad happen to an almost 60-year-old former heavyweight champion of the world. But then this comes up, Perry and Paul, and like when I saw that, I was like, yo, this actually has me excited. I love Mike Perry when he throwing hands, and Jake Paul is just somebody like now every time you count him out, we thought Tyron Woodley was going to beat him. We thought Ben Askren was going to beat him, and then he winds up beating them. So I don't know, man. I'm excited for it, and I think I was going to ask you keys to victory. I mean, how do you think? How do you think one beats the other? I think Perry can beat Jake Paul if he corners him, works a clinch a lot, and is able to make him kind of engage even for a millisecond or a few seconds toe to toe before he goes away to try to counterpunch. Obviously the opposite is what I think is for Jake Paul, the counterpunching, the making him
Yeah,
move.
I mean, I think Jake Paul's key is the jab. I
Mm-hmm.
think his key is remaining calm, not going into a phone booth
Mm-hmm.
fight, but circling, using his footwork, using his boxing skills, which he's proven to have, and then we'll see where Perry is in a true boxing skills, as
Mm-hmm.
far as footwork and movement around the ring. And I think Perry's key to victory is remaining composed
Yeah.
also, but
Not
in a
get bloodthirsty. Yeah.
more violent way. He
Yeah.
has to impose his will a little bit. If he doesn't impose his will and allows Jake Paul to be comfortable and kind of listen, I know these guys aren't afraid of each other,
Hmm.
but I have a hard time believing you can look across the ring and Mike Perry and something in your brain doesn't go, here we go. Like, this is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I have a hard time believing that you can think that and it not be some kind of subliminal message like,
Yeah.
this is Mike Perry. This isn't Joe the
And,
garbage man. You know what I
and
mean?
there's something he does, and like there's something he does, like even when he's been ringside at BKFC events and people like when he did Julian Lane thing, like there's something like if he knows a fight's coming, Mike Perry he literally starts punching himself in the face to turn on whatever it is he has to turn on to do whatever he has to do. And I think that's the thing that like every fighter has their own process, but his seems to be it's very do or die. And it's not for nothing. It's not going to make for a long career either. But for this particular fight, I like again. You're right. I mean, they did a face off just earlier today. I saw clips from, and I mean, the stuff Mike Perry is saying, like Mike Perry's telling him, like I'm gonna like pluck your eyes out of your head and stuff like that, and Jake Paul's like wondering, like, it's almost like that Key and Peele thing. Is this guy serious, or you know what I
Well,
mean?
it's like Tyson talking about
Yeah,
eating your children and stuff. You don't Lillard. I mean, he doesn't think Mike Perry's going to gouge his eyes out and
yeah.
find his thoughts. But at the same time, you're talking to I don't know, psychopath isn't the right word because he's not. But you're talking
Yeah,
to a trained killer. You're
yeah,
talking to somebody that. I mean, does any of us think Mike Perry would live a normal life if he couldn't cage fight or bare knuckle
yeah,
fight?
yeah,
He like, let's just be clear, I mean, the same goes for Diaz. We just mentioned him.
yeah.
Like,
Well, that's the thing. You're
they're
right.
probably not working at Costco. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
that's a
Like,
great point. Like Jake Paul could literally stop competing and just be the promoter and make the funny videos, and you know what I mean. He could just stay out of it. The Paul brothers have obviously found ways to do other things to make money, but I mean, this has been Mike Perry's life for longer than Jake Paul's been boxing.
he's a
Yeah,
modern day Tank Abbott. He's the same kind of guy. Like, this is a fighter.
hmm
He's a fighter. It's like when we talk to the old school guys, Myers and Erickson. Like, he's a fighter. He's a throwback. He could have easily. Mike Perry could have been fighting Igor Vovchanchyn in friggin' Kiev. Like,
yeah.
that's. Like, he would have done, like, that's the kind of fighter he is. He would have been one of those old school Alex Stiebling kind of guys that we talked about, who
That's
went
a great.
around
Yeah,
fighting
that's.
everybody and having no fear. And like, yeah, there's going to be some fights I'm going to have a hatchet wound over my forehead because I went in there and I was throwing, punches with another savage and the thing. Like,
hmm
that's just him. And and there was times he said some stupid stuff in the past that made us kind of go, okay, is this guy just an idiot?
Yeah, no,
But
he went. Yeah, we've talked about that before. He went from being somebody that you poked fun at when he was, excuse me, in the UFC to somebody that it's like, yo, don't
for
fuck
me,
with
it
that
was having
guy. Yeah,
Sean Wheelock on here, and him
mhm,
vouching for the guy and going, I'm interviewing the guy, and like, this guy's going
yeah,
to be a mega star. This is before he even fought. I think we had
yeah.
Sean on before he fought Julian Lane, and it was like he was
Oh
just
yeah,
praising the whole aura almost that was Mike Perry at the time, and really going, no, this guy's thinking these things through. Yes, he comes off like this, but the dude is a well thought out, like,
oh
this,
yeah, and I think that's been coming out more lately too. And especially with his post event pressers from the BKFC stuff, when he talks about the marquee and like it can't just be my name; it has to be another name, and that's why this is happening. Like he knows that too. So in fight in competition, he's like he's a bit learned to understand the business more. Um, I
and he seems
mean,
grateful. He seems grateful for that
yeah,
that he's here now.
yeah,
I hinted at, well, what would he be doing without this? He
yeah,
seems grateful that he's making good money. He's finally found his niche, and he doesn't have to put on an act anymore. Now he can
yeah,
just be Mike Perry.
yeah. And Mike Perry, when he's when he's got that flip switch, is still a dangerous fucking dude. So, like that, it's weird. Like I'm looking forward to the face off. I know they're gonna face. And I actually, this was another event that I was like, man, should I switch? That I wanted to change because it's down in Tampa. That's like a 2 hour flight for me. You know what I mean? Like I was, and I got friends that live in Florida. That I could have near there that I could have stayed with that I thought about switching it up for, my time off from my other job, but I was just like, man, this is something that I mean, this is one between the BKFC that you were at and this one. This is another one that I'm like, July's been overall a pretty fun month, like for fight fans, I think.
No, I mean, it's unfolded like it unexpectedly. We didn't
Yeah,
expect to Diaz much from Diaz Masvidal. We got surprisingly a great fight out of that. And this, I mean, this is kind of been flying under the radar a little bit too. I feel
yeah.
like it's a
I
little
don't
bit
think
under the radar.
I feel like it trended a little bit more today because of the interviews that they've been
And,
doing.
and truth be told, there's been nothing is beating the headlines from the last couple days. So with
Yeah,
what's gone on in this world, like there's
yeah,
a reason maybe why some of this stuff's been on the back burner. And as
yeah,
far as the public's awareness, I know at least for me it has been. I haven't been as alert on what's going on in the fight world the last 2-3 days,
yeah.
as opposed to focused on kind of the real life world. But
Hmm.
but there's a reason we love this. It brings joy to us. We get to watch it. These guys
Yeah,
are doing it willfully. They're going to get paid
and it
great
gives your
money.
mind a break from all the
And it gives
madness
your mind.
going on.
That's what this is
Yeah,
supposed to all bring to
yeah,
us. The craziness of the last week. We get to sit down, watch this. Hopefully, all goes well. Hopefully, there's no crazy
yeah.
injury in the ring. Hopefully, it's just two guys who go out there, give their best. I mean, you talk about going to this event. I almost would anticipate going to the next one because I feel like there's something, like you said, whether it's an MMA fight or
Hmm.
something, I feel like there's something where this builds off of, especially if Mike Perry wins. If Mike
Yeah.
Perry wins this fight, his next BKFC fight, if that's what it is going to be electric.
Oh
The,
yeah.
and the names that BKFC will be able to pull to fight him will become
Hmm.
another. You'll have another shelf of people that you can go, because now he's got name. Now he's the Jake Paul Slayer. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, there would, and Jake Paul has a loss, but it's not.
Hmm.
I thought he won the fight against Tommy Fury, and so that's it. It was a decision. If he was, if Mike Perry was able to go out there and finish Jake Paul and leave him knocked out on the ground,
Hmm.
like Woodley and like a bunch of these other guys that we've seen to fight, Mike Perry would become a. I think it would be another dimension. You
Yeah.
know, I think you would then
100%.
have like professional boxers going, okay, let's take the
Hmm.
gloves off.
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden you'd have a Canelo and I'm not saying Mike Perry should be fighting Canelo. Don't.
No, no,
But
absolutely not. No,
but
I
but
prefer he stays in BKFC
but
just because
it opens up that opportunity in this crazy combat world we're in
yeah,
right now, where he could in theory call him out, and
yeah,
you never know what's going to happen. But not looking past this weekend, I think Jake Paul is going to be a hell of a one for him to get past in a
yeah,
boxing ring, and
yeah.
I'm just looking forward to it. It's on
And pay
DAZN.
attention. Tell folks. Remember, I'm saying it now. Pay attention to the size of the ring. I think there's going to be a lot of other factors that Paul probably has in place that Perry's. I mean, Perry just doesn't give a fuck. He just wants to fight. But I think that the Jake Paul being who he is, he probably knows to try to add other factors to make the boxing rules work in his favor on top of them just being boxing rules anyway. But really quick, just before we cut off to the interview that I did, there is a UFC this weekend. It's an early one, so you could actually, if you don't got anything going on Saturday, the early card for the UFC starts at 5 p.m. ESPN2, ESPN Plus, and then the main card is ABC 8 p.m. And regular ESPN. So it's a fun-filled Saturday for if you're looking for your face punching and everything else. There's a lot going on.
And props to Rose Namajunas. Nice win over the
Mhm.
weekend. Looked good. So
Yeah.
nice to see that. I like her. I like rooting for her. I like
Oh yeah.
MMA
No, me
when
too. Yeah.
Rose is doing well. Especially women's MMA is fun. Um, I think that's gonna do it, folks. Definitely catch Ed's interview. And thanks for listening. You can follow the show at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, Old Head Carb on Twitch. Thanks for listening, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the week and try to stay cool,
Hmm.
no matter where you're at.
And if you're
Good night.
doing any Prime shopping on Prime Day, it's tonight, the rest of tonight, and all day tomorrow. Please use our link. It's in the description. It'll be in everywhere the podcast plays.
Good night, everyone.